Good afternoon. I'm glad you can join us. My name is Ren Sen. I'm a software engineer and more lately doubling up as a technical product manager. Since 2018, I've been focusing on conversational AI applications, especially on design and engineering. So conversational AI actually refers to chatbots. And by the way, do you know there are chatbots on some government websites today that are using OpenAI already? I'll unveil more on this later. And also, food for thought, what if each of us have a personal virtual assistant that can talk to all the agencies catered to your specific needs and catered to your life stage? So why conversational AI in government? At VICA, I think our work has never been so important until now. We believe we are now in a critical moment to transform digital services nationwide. There are many things we can do to include people who are just trying to keep up with tech just to access government services. So here I'm very incredibly proud to be surrounded by my work buddies to deliver services to all of us in an intuitive, frictionless, conversational manner to a vast majority of Singaporeans. This is very much aligned to our division, Moments of Life. It is the vision to transform service delivery using tech and create products that are very delightful to all of us and enriching the businesses. So today I'm here to talk about three things that have become interesting, if not essential to our future for all Singaporeans. So firstly, briefly about VICA, how it matters to us, what good chatbots look like with 5 levels I'll introduce later, and what plans are we cracking on with generative AI. VICA first and foremost creates a new virtual assistant experience for people to get a direct path from a need to an answer. It started to regain control of the data in the older Ask Jamie chatbots. I'm pretty sure you have seen that and used that. But for us, it is to return the control to the agencies via a centralized dashboard, giving them greater agility to update and publish content anytime. And besides just a CMS, it's also a powerful and flexible plug-and-play center for third-party integrations. For example, live chat providers as well as SingPass. So the COVID-19 info bot back in the 2020 was one of the first few examples of launch on the VICA platform. It carries a lot of summarized information across various agencies and tailored to different groups of people, students, parents, for example. Another one was Kaki. You can find them on WhatsApp and Telegram as well. It allows all of us to report municipal issues, whether they are things like malfunctioning corridor lights, pigeon nuisance, cat nuisance, as well as receiving alerts for upcoming HDB renovation works, so you can make your arrangements before there's lots of noise, disrupting your Zoom calls, for example. Okay, those were some of the examples of the over 80 chatbots VICA carries right now, and we can't wait to be the host of over 100 chatbots by the end of the year, giving all the agencies greater control of their content and helping them to succeed with good chat experiences. So this leads me to my next segment on what engineers and designers can do to create acceptable chat experiences. And to understand a key takeaway away from this segment, let's take a look at a brief history. About half a century ago, Alan Turing can be considered as the father of the modern computer science. He imagined and laid a powerful idea: what if a computer can deceive us, believing that it was human behind the scenes? And from then on, his work inspired generations of research to build the next machine that will pass his test, called the Turing test. And before Siri and ChatGPT, the first chatbot made in history is called Eliza. There are still some videos of it on YouTube showing how it actually mimics a human psychiatrist or psychologist, even though it uses very rudimentary yet elaborated if-else conditions and lookup tables. It also uses clever string rephrasing tricks. It kept the user very engaged. In just 7 to 8 decades, there were several introductions of smart assistants, some of which we have heard before, like Siri, Google Duplex, and more recently, ChatGPT. And they incredibly surprised us with their capabilities at different points of time. There's one thing in common throughout the years. No matter the chatbot uses AI, ML, NLP, or even LLMs, as long as we write helpful natural dialogues and influence users to give the right inputs to the chatbot, we can create a very delightful experience. So this is still true for cases where the chatbot don't receive the expected inputs from the user. Instead of saying, sorry, I don't understand, please rephrase your question. Right? That's what we get most of the time in previous chatbots. What could be a better way? A better way is to say, sorry, I'm not able to help you with that. Let me check my tauke. Meanwhile, I can help you A, B, or C. What can I do for you today? So actually such an experience will be much more acceptable because in the end, people see what the chatbot says, not what the technology it uses, whether it's LLMs or not. So that leads me to my next point. How can we do better for chatbots, right? With the 5 levels of user-centric chatbots. To make a chatbot intelligent, what that means is about shifting the work required by the user to the chatbot, such that the chatbot becomes more tolerant of the various inputs. Unlike in mobile web apps, you need to do field validations, text validations, for example. In a chatbot, you don't need to validate any text because it's free text. So let's go through one by one of them. Notification assistant is the first level. Most users will need to recall or specifically follow the syntax. Remember how you subscribe to SMS alerts? That's level 1, and that's not the ideal experience. Level 2, FAQ assistants are the most common assistants we see in the market before ChatGPT. It uses NLP to predict the intent and extract entities, if it is capable of doing that, in their utterance. And there's no need to follow a particular syntax, but maybe need to follow a guided prompt if needed. But at this point of time, and also surprisingly, 2018, 2021, there were several businesses with feverish dreams, okay, of creating AI chatbots, but still can't get it right. The chatbot experience wasn't quite right yet. Was it due to the tools they chosen? Was it due to the tools that were not sufficient to the chatbot editors? Maybe it's not quite that. As you can see from this example, the right training data is needed. For example, the intent here that we are trying to create is called, what is the current booster vaccination strategy? And the only phrases that are related to this intent are highlighted in green. And several of them, for example, seniors, senior citizens, declining immunity, and so on, do not directly mean what is in the meaning of the intent. So there is a mismatch of the training phrases to the intent. With very few correct training phrases, and this happens most of the time, users will likely get a mismatch of query to an answer or a fallback intent. Even with good training data, it will still be a mistake for engineers and designers to treat dialogues like navigation menus, hiding the answers at the deepest level, which is on the right, extreme right side. Okay, this can result in a very unintuitive UX because in this example, the answer to the safety of the Moderna vaccine, or booster, sorry, is not found unless you ask the chatbot what are the types of boosters first before you can ask, is it safe or not, based on the tree dialogue structure. And furthermore, tree-like dialogue structures are not visible to the users. They are only known from the engineer's point of view. So there's a risk that users could enter the wrong side of the dialogue, not knowing they enter the wrong side of the dialogue, unless it ends off with a helpful and natural dialogue to recover from the errors, as seen from the left box. And on the right box, tree-like dialogues also don't necessarily remember what you say. It merely just routes you step by step. It just wants you to follow its flow. If you tell the chatbot that you want to make a reservation for 5 people, maybe it asks you, when do you want to book? And then how many people again? Because it wants you to follow the flow. So for that, it's important to extract the key information or details or entities set by the user, such as date and time, how many people, location, etc., and store them in the session state or context. That's where we lead on to level 3. This is contextual assistance. For example, if you're asking about weather, you will pull out the location from the context. As can be seen from a snippet of code on the gray box, you will pull out the location from the context. If the location is not known, You can ask for the location and put them into the context. And then finally, no matter what intent you trigger, you can fulfill them with a common function, which will return a text based on the contextual parameters. So in this sense, if we do it correctly, the users are free to change their minds, changing their parameters without repeating other parameters or even just to start again, restart the flow. They are still in charge of their goal. The example here is they're trying to find the best price. They can change the dates, they can change the choice of airlines, and they can just see what is the resulting airfare from the parameters they've given. So in summary, at this point, intelligent chatbots require context in addition to guided flows in any of them. So this is what VICA provides on the platform in its content management platform. At the center, you see there's this thing called context. So it allows agencies to define the context around intents to create a very contextual assistant. Anything beyond that requires custom integration with, let's say, their databases or APIs. These are developed by the engineers. So this is a typical workflow for most, this is a typical diagram for most chatbot architecture. So what will level 4 and 5 look like? That's where generative AI can unlock those levels. Remember that making a chatbot is intelligent in shifting the work from the user to the bot. So in this example, the user can express a situation and a question without knowing exactly what tasks are involved with their concerns. The chatbot will figure out. If you like to buy another flat, but say that you're listed as a co-owner in the current flat, it will explain to you why, and then suggest to you that you withdraw your name from the flat, and then additionally check if remaining owners are allowed to retain the flat. These are consultative assistants. And then the next level is what we are most familiar with. This is the highest level. This is like ChatGPT. This is what we already know. In fact, if you used it before, you don't really need to come in with clear goals, right? The chatbot will figure that out for you. So some of us at VICA experimented with OpenAI TextVC 002, the version of GPT-3 back in April 2022, early days. The problems we are trying to solve were how might we help each chatbot address queries they are not trained to do so, because there are a finite set of intents, but there's an infinite information from search results and agency FAQ sites. So we were initially very stoked by the creative results, but little did we realize it's now known as prompt engineering. So we first released a trial with a group of tech khaki users and see how far we can push this OpenAI whole of government chatbot can go. Each chat session is randomized with different completion settings to determine the right parameters that will align with their expectations. And despite the parameters, there were still surprising answers, some of which were least problematic, like nonsense info, or claiming that it can pour coffee or check somebody's house, right? But there's also a chance to fool users with misinfo, but thankfully, OpenAI continues to always update the models to suppress them. Besides, we also doubted the appropriateness of some answers. Can a government chatbot give investment advice? Can it give an opinion for a foreign leader? Can it resolve conflicts between two loved ones? Even though the answer is right, it may not be right from the government point of view. All right. So to err on the side of caution, we learn to mitigate these risks. We block these topics in the prompt design. We fine-tune the base model to deflect those topics and give visual UX cues to indicate generative answers and put them on live SG on a trial once again to a wider group of people last year, 30 November. As of today, generative AI is viewed with some degree of caution, especially if it's public-facing. So even though LLMs are imperfect, it still has tremendous value. We still need time to give people to understand the risks and opportunities and support them to make the right guidelines. So under recent guidelines, this whole of government chatbot, Alphabot, was re-engineered to simply use the OpenAI plus Pinecone stack. With that, uses high-dimensional pre-trained model and perform a cosine similarity matching of vectors, we get the exact answer from various agencies. In case it gets wrong, it's okay. Right? The risk of mismatch is not as bad as hallucination. And the benefit to the agency is that they don't need to do much training anymore. And we observe an increased match of queries that last time couldn't be answered last time. So these effects of OP stack can be seen in our newer chatbots today, such as Go Business and HDB. Right? You can check them on their respective sites. So the next version of VICA will be called VICA 2. It will be our most transformative experience for users yet. Instead of creating content, we use Gen AI to save agencies time. Instead of learning to create intents, agencies will bring their own data. Instead of having the users to know which chatbot to go to report a fallen tree in the car park, they can just approach one chatbot as a unified virtual assistant. It will make use of LLMs and data sources to perform RAG, meaning to answer questions truthfully based on the prompt and data provided. Those are highlighted in blue, and the result will be returned through our VICA-X or Superbot engine, depending on the channel they're interacting with. So VICA 2 will cater to different risk appetites of Gen AI, because not all agencies will accept that and will operate under the AI policy. For example, if agencies are bringing their own data, then we would suggest a set of FAQs for them to review and save the exact verbatims. If not, you can chunk up the documents and save them. All the results are vectorized and stored into the vector DB. And then to retrieve them, in the case, let's say, a user talks to a chatbot, you will either get the exact verbatim or the multiple chunks, depending on how it was stored initially. The text from the chunks, together with the prompt, will help in providing the most up-to-date and natural sounding answers. Beyond a much better QA system, we recognize the untapped opportunities and want to help those who need to understand government policies in other languages. We are also finding ways to empower agencies to connect to their data sources, manage the wide FAQ content they have more efficiently, and unify all the answers with a consistent tone of voice so that we can create a more empathetic and enjoyable experience for citizens. So I hope that you're excited about our future as much as we do, where there'll be more adaptive assistance, learning from all sources of content. With that, we aim to help people with different needs at different life stages without bouncing around different agencies, all through a unified and helpful virtual assistant. Thank you very much.